Okay, so welcome to part two of our special three-part interview with Rory Smith of the New York Times. If you haven't listened to our first episode, make sure you do, where we looked at Bayern Munich and how they were able to rebuild their treble-winning side from 2012 to last season's Champions League victory. However, in this episode, we're going to discuss all things Everton, looking particularly at their manager, Carlo Ancelotti. Enjoy. Switching gears then, Rory, to your interview with Ancelotti. I thought that was a very fascinating piece and it gave us great insight into, I mean, he's won almost every trophy there is to win. And, you know, like you say in your piece, he could be or must be considered one of the most or one of the finest managers of his generation. Just talk to us about, he's sort of like the anti-Mourinho in the sense that he doesn't big himself up, does he?
Yeah, he's an interesting kind of anti quite a lot of stuff, is Carlo, I think, because so we kind of have this cult of the manager situation now where we kind of look to people like Klopp and Mourinho and Guardiola as kind of these visionaries and these gurus who kind of have the answer for everything, and we expect managers to have this kind of all-encompassing philosophy and to be able to kind of be the identity and the heart and the soul, but also like the public face of a club. And Ancelotti's just a bit, I don't know, he's just a bit more relaxed than that. Like, one thing that really struck me is that generally, if you talk to people in football, especially managers, the stuff that they like talking about is anything that's not football. They don't want to talk to journalists about tactics, because deep down they don't think journalists know anything about tactics. And even if they do think the journalists know anything about tactics, which is rarely the case, they don't want to give away their secrets. Because why would you? Like, this is like you don't. I mean, I've done press conferences and sort of said to managers, do you want to, will you do this, that, or the other to take into account the opposition's big, the winner who's their best player or whatever, and they just bat you away. They don't want to tell you. Why would they want to tell you? Like, does that's then it get published and the opposition will know, oh, they're going to do this, so let's play differently.
Yeah.
But also I think they think about football so much that there's a point where it's a bit like, well, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. I'm a bit kind of bored with talking about this and having to dumb it down for you journalists. It must be quite annoying. So generally, as a rule, if you can get people talking about other stuff, then it's quite good. The problem at the moment, I think, this is probably an unfair perception, is that because there's this kind of character of the manager that we've created, like media and fans, I think they all think they have to kind of portray this image of themselves as being completely one-dimensional. So there's that famous story from Manel Estiarte, Pep's kind of consigliere, about how you can't have a conversation with Guardiola for more than half an hour without talking about football, that eventually he will turn it back to football. And, Rafa Benitez famously used to use salt and pepper pots to lay out tactics at lunch. And I've had lunch with Rafa, and that is basically true. And it's the same with Klopp's a little bit different, I think, but a lot of them have this sense that to be a manager, you have to give the impression that you're completely all consumed by football. And Ancelotti's just doesn't see that. He just doesn't get it. So I sort of asked him if he missed football during lockdown. He just went, no, not really. I had other stuff to do. And, he like the bits that and the fact that it's a good interview has nothing to do with me. It's entirely to do with him. But the bits that he got really kind of engaged with were talking about his dogs and talking about stuff he'd watched on Netflix during lockdown, and talking about the bit of Liverpool, Crosby, where he lives, which he is obsessed with. I mean, I know Crosby. Crosby's nice. He's maybe a little bit. His man who's lived in Paris and Madrid and Milan and Parma, which is the highest standard of living in Italy. And you sort of them, well, it's Crosby, it's fine, but don't go overboard. And the bit that he got really kind of into, but he was like a bit weirdly nervous about, so he's from Reggio Emilia, which is the bit in kind of the northern middle of Italy, which is just above Parma. And obviously he was born in Reggio, but he spent his youth career at Parma, and Parma was his first managerial job, or his second managerial job. And there's a big thing about Parmesan cheese in that bit of Italy, because it's Parmigiano-Reggiano. So it's both areas claim it. Yeah. But in Reggio, they think it should be called Reggiano Parmigiano, Reggio first, and then Parma. And like, he was talking me through it, and as he kind of got deeper into it, you could tell he was thinking, I'm going to say something that's going to really upset somebody here. Because if he said, obviously it should be Reggiano Parmigiano because it's from Reggio, then that would cause like a massive. And he just kept sort of stopping her. And it's a big rivalry. It's a really big rivalry. And you could tell he was really like, I'm interested in this because I find it fascinating, but I don't want to put my foot in it. And I think that's actually really refreshing to have a manager who's that multidimensional. And funny enough, I spoke to him, I think the day or 2 days before I spoke to Flick, and they both have a similar approach. That they're that the reason I think Ancelotti gets overlooked a bit is because he's not a Guardiola. He's not a kind of, and I love Pep and I love the football his teams play, but there's an element of Guardiola where he is deliberately projecting an image of being the kind of football savant who is kind of completely immersed in the game. And if you cut him open, he'll just like tactics will fall out of him, like different formations.
Yeah.
And I think we have kind of come to expect that. And if you read any profile, there's certain like media stereotypes of pieces that where it's almost like you have to have a box ticked for every piece. You think about the number of pieces you'll read about like a lower league manager who says, I'm the first in the morning, I'm the last in at night. And quite often what they mean by that is that they get into work at 9 and they leave at 4. And they are basically just working a normal day, and it's not that impressive. But there's this kind of idea that you have to kind of give yourself over to the club and to football, because otherwise, I guess the thinking is that if you give any other impression, the fans might think, well, you're not really trying. But I just think with Ancelotti, he's achieved so much. He's won the Champions League as a player. He was part of that brilliant AC Milan team. He's won the Champions League twice at Milan and once at Real. He's got nothing to prove to anybody. He does not need you to be impressed by him, Carlo Ancelotti. He is just him unapologetically. And that's really, really easy to identify with, because he's just such a kind of laid back. I guess what it is, it's just he's got complete self-confidence. He just knows, I'm Carlo Ancelotti and I'll do this my way and I'm good at it and it will work. And if you decide that I should be doing it differently, then okay, that's what you think. But I'm the one with all these trophies in my cabinet, so who's going to win this argument?
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard not to like Carlo. He is a genuinely kind of, look at me calling him Carlo like we're mates. We're not.
Soon you might be.
Well, yeah, if I keep being nice about him, you never know. Exactly. And he was like, he seemed quite into the. To be fair, he's like quite often you find that they're doing it under duress, but he seemed quite into it, and he was quite happy to talk. But yeah, I think he sees football for what it is, and I think that's really important.
And then something very interesting, which he mentioned, was that there's two types of club. There's the company club where the job is to arrive and win, and then you've got the family club where you sort of build the club up to, compete with these bigger clubs, sort of like what he's doing with Everton. So just talk to us about that.
Yeah, he kind of I think he says it in his book, one of his books, Quiet Leadership, as well, that there's kind of sees Everton as a family club, and I think don't think he thinks of it as being a kind of holy place to work, and no one really cares what the results are, and it's more that it feels more intimate, much closer, a bit more of a kind of everyone pulling together, rather than, I guess, at a Real Madrid or an AC Milan, you feel like you're a cog in a wheel, effectively, that that you can be replaced at any moment, and that if the company is not getting what it wants from you, then you will be fired. And it's interesting that he's gone. He's had this career basically spent at super clubs since '99. He got the Juventus job. He's been 21 years in what we would now call super clubs, where second place is last, and failure is not tolerated. And it's a bit weird, I think. In all honesty, it's a bit strange that he's gone back to Everton, and he himself said like it was kind of happy coincidence that he got sacked by Napoli and Everton needed a manager, and he wanted to work, so he took the job. But I think he feels maybe. I wonder if this is my interpretation. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. I wonder if he just feels a little bit more comfortable. It must be a pretty brutal existence, even for a man that laid back.
Yeah. To
be kind of at Real Madrid, at PSG, at Chelsea, at Bayern Munich, where you have to kind of, where there's no such thing as a misstep, that there's one chance and you're gone. And I wonder if he feels a little bit more energized by the idea that he's got a bit of time at Everton, and Everton feel this without kind of criticising Everton or putting them down. Everton are kind of lucky to have Carlo Ancelotti because he is possibly the best manager of his generation. So I think he's responded really well to that sense that he knows he has a bit more time. But equally, he said as well. I don't think I used the quote, but he said there's been times when he's been sacked and he's thought, "Thank God." So managers know when it's not working. Not stupid.
Yeah, of course.
So I think he feels a little bit more free, maybe at Everton. That there is a bit more leeway for him to try and build something, and it's a different challenge for him, I guess, as well. He's in his 60s, but he still feels young, and he obviously still feels that he's got a lot to give. And I guess that there is something, what's the word, inspiring and challenging about something new and different, and I guess that energizes you a little bit. And he seems to me to be really happy. I think he's enjoying. He doesn't feel as though there was that perception when he got that it was a bit beneath him, but I don't think he feels a different way of managing. He's ready for it.
Coach Dan, what do you make of Ancelotti?
Well, I mean, let me rectify a mistake I made earlier on in case they hear and they get annoyed with me. I refer to Lucas Hernandez as Theo Hernandez, but anyhow, they're both good footballers. Carlo Ancelotti, he's not your typical sort of Italian manager in the sense of how animated they usually are on the sideline. He has this cool and calm and collected sort of aura about him that, it's refreshing to see. And, Rory mentioned, right, that, he doesn't need to prove himself to anyone. That's including myself. If you remember, Big Bro, one of our episodes, we went through top managers, right? And he didn't make my top 5. But clearly, this guy is a great manager. And he's been in the game so long, right? And hardly speaks about his credentials that sometimes we forget what he's achieved. That if you don't really think about it, sometimes you easily forget. And that's what he is, everywhere he's gone, bar, Bayern Munich. I don't know if Rory's got any news on that, why, it happened the way it did. He's been very successful. And when people have allowed him to do his job, he always provides. And I think he's got that at Everton. Rory's already mentioned, if you're all being honest, he's a bigger profile than Everton as a football club. That's why, they're able to bring in James Rodriguez. And we've already mentioned what that means for Everton in adopting the whole of Colombia as a support, as a fan base. So that's all what he brings to the club. And of course, he gets it with the football. His teams are always entertaining. We remember the Chelsea season he had where they just scored goals for fun. Napoli goals for fun. Real Madrid, they played great football. You give him time and you get to see what he can provide. And who knows, man, maybe Everton will be the next club, to be put on the map as, one of these great clubs that, and he will be responsible for that influence. So as long as they can be calm, provide them with the resources that he asks for, who knows, he could get in even better world-class players in the years to come.
Yeah, no, do you know, I just wanted to pick up on something Dan said as well. I think it's really interesting with Ancelotti that, so you think about his Real Madrid team was a brilliant counter-attacking team that they had that lightning speed on the break. I think they beat Bayern 4-0 in Munich in the semi-final the year they won the Champions League. And he was watching Di Maria and basically Xabi Alonso sitting deep, just pinging passes to Di Maria, Benzema, Ronaldo, Bale, tearing forward. You then go to his Napoli team, and he basically kept that kind of Sarri ball style going. It got a little bit kind of tweaked, but it was still that attractive on the ground kind of possession-based football, inviting the press. Sarri's Napoli so special. And then he goes to Everton, and he's playing 4-3-3, but there's times when it's get the fullbacks forward, get the ball in for Calvert-Lewin, and I think in a way that counts against him because there's not a definitive style that you can say that is Carlo Ancelotti's style. But really, it should be a source of massive praise that basically he can do all of it. Like if you want to play, wide and cross the ball in, Carlo Ancelotti can do it. If you want to play possession football, Ancelotti can do it. If you want to counter attack, Ancelotti can do it. And I think it's just really weird to me that he gets, because we want managers to be to have like a defined style, to have a philosophy that we can identify and say these are their principles, that we've kind of taught ourselves. And I think that I'm as guilty of this as anybody, because I would have done countless pieces about this manager or that manager who's got this ideology that they won't waver from. But I just think the kind of pragmatism and the adaptability and flexibility that Ancelotti has is incredible. Like, if you think about it, he's turned Dominic Calvert-Lewin into Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah.
And he's Italian. And he used to be manager of Real Madrid. And you sort of think, well, that's an incredible piece of work.
Okay, so that does it for part 2 of our interview with Rory Smith of the New York Times. Make sure you tune in again tomorrow, where we'll be looking at Argentina and the lack of talent coming from abroad into Europe. See you tomorrow.